Hello everyone, my name is Ankit Jain. I welcome you all to my channel Tech Journey with Ankit. Today's video is again in the continuation of the trigger scenarios that we are discussing. So today we will explore another scenarios which again will be a part of one of the interview question as well because this question has been asked for the TCS interview. So let's get started. Again, in case you folks like to connect with me for one-to-one connect, you can definitely connect with me on the top met. And in case you folks like to join a group where the like-minded people do discuss the Salesforce queries, you can also join the Telegram group as well. So again, before we go into the today's scenario, I will do a quick revision like we have done in the last video as well, so that I want this concept should be very much clear into your mind. So again, what is trigger? Trigger is a piece of code that gets executed whenever any DML operation has been done. So there are two types of triggers basically that we do have. One is the before trigger and second one is the after trigger. Before trigger is something which will execute when the before the record is saved, and after trigger is something which will execute after the record has been saved. As a developer, you should go and write down the before trigger whenever you have to update the field of the same record or you have to perform the validation of the record. In such scenarios, you should go for the before trigger. Go for the after trigger whenever you have to perform some integrations to the external system, whenever you want to perform the operations on the related records, whenever you need the system generated fields like the record ID or the last modified date, then you should go for the after trigger. There are two important context variables that we do have in the trigger. First one is the trigger.new and second one is the trigger.old. Trigger.new context variable will have the values available with the list of records whenever the end user is performing the insert, update, or the undelete operation. The values will not be available in the trigger.new when the end user is performing the delete operation. Similarly, the trigger.old, the values will be available in the trigger.old when the end user is performing either the update or the delete operation. And values will not be available when the end user is performing the insert or the undelete operation. So values will be available on update and delete and not available on insert and undelete. We also discussed about the syntax of the triggers as well, where the syntax goes something like this: trigger followed by the trigger name, which where you can give any logical name to the trigger. On object, whatever the object you have to go and create the trigger, you can go and specify the name of the trigger here. Moving to the events part, so there are altogether 7 events that you can go and define for the trigger, and based on the events and the context variable, this matrix has been prepared so that you can understand in which particular event which context variable do have the value. For example, the before insert context variable, sorry, in the case of before insert event, only the trigger dot new context variable do have the value. Similarly, in the case of after delete, only the trigger.old and the trigger.old map do have the value. So this matrix will help you to decide which context variable you can use whenever you are writing down your trigger. There are few best practices that you should always be following whenever you are writing down the trigger. Make this as a habit whenever you are even practicing the trigger. Always try to follow all these best practices. First one here is we should always go for one trigger per object. Always try to follow the logical naming convention. In your trigger, only define the logical events. Don't go and write down all the 7 types of events in the trigger. Always create the context specific handler method. If you guys are following the series, in the last video, I have shown you how we can create the context specific handler method. Always go and write down the logicless trigger. Your trigger should always be logicless. It should only have the logic to which specific context specific method needs to be invoked. Next one here is always make sure you are bulkifying the code, following the good practices of the Apex, use collections, and always try to avoid SOQL and the DMLs inside the loop. Whenever possible, go for the SOQL query for loop. Properly use the future method. Most of the times we do have a habit to forget about the undelete operations, so don't do that. And before you even jump to the trigger, always try to analyze the requirement if you can get this done using the flow. Again, for this series, the kind of a questions that I am taking right now, Definitely it can be done using the flow as well, but as we are learning the trigger, we will do practice using the triggers here. So what is the scenario for today? The scenario for today is a bit tricky as compared to the last example, so I want you guys to pay attention. So the scenario says that we have to go and create a Salesforce trigger. What that trigger should do, automatically search for a contact based on the web email field of the case object. So on the case object, we do have one field with the name of web email. We have based on that web email, we have to go and search the contact. And what we have to do, whenever the end user is creating the contact, we have to go and populate the contact field based on the search. What we have to do, we have to go and populate the contact field based on the search. Let me quickly show you what we have to actually do here. So here I am navigating to the case. So for example, what the end user will be doing, end user will come here and create the new case. While creating the case, the end user will go and maintain the web email. For example, let's say I am maintaining here the web email as ankitjain@salesforcelearning.com. Okay, if this is my web email, what I need to do, I need to take this web email, go to my contacts, and I need to go and populate the contact name here. So I need to take this web email. After taking this web email, I need to go and search for this contact in this complete contact list. In this complete contact list, I need to go and do that. Let me switch to the list view. I need to go and search for the email here, and whatever the contact that I am finding, I need to go and populate that contact on the case record. So this is the end-to-end use case that we have to achieve using the trigger. Now again, like we have done in the last session, I want you guys to pause the video and answer this 4 question, because if you answer this 4 question, where most of the things will be clear, what should be your next step while writing down the trigger. The first question here is, on which object the end user is performing the operation. My problem statement says that when the case is created. So what the end user is doing, end user is performing the operations on the case object here. Second question, what type of operation is the user is performing? Here we've seen that the user is creating the case, so we can say that the user is performing the insert operation. Now, what type of trigger that we will go and use here? Again, in this scenario, what we have to do, we have to populate the field of the same record. In the last session, or in just now also, we discussed that whenever we have to update the field of the same record, right? Whenever we have to update the field of the same record, we always go for the before trigger. So here also, what we will do, we will go for the before trigger. Now, whenever we do have the insert and the before trigger, just now we discussed the context variable that will be available to me is the trigger dot new context variable. So this will be the answer, right? The user will be performing the operation on the case object. The operation that the end user is doing is the insert, and we have to go and write down the before trigger. Followed by that, we need to go and use the context variable trigger dot new. So my trigger needs to be created here on the case object. Now with this information, can you guys tell me in the comment section what type of event will be applicable here? There can be one, there can be more than one. So what type of different events will be applicable here? Again, in this specific scenario, the event that will only be applicable will be the before insert event. The event that will be applicable only will be the before insert event. Now with this logic, let's go and try to create our trigger. So again, I am creating the trigger on the case object. So taking the first option, that is case trigger. Let me put the case trigger for now. And here I am putting the S object as the case, right? Again, we have to make sure that we are defining the appropriate context variables as well as the event. So my event just now we discussed, it's going to be the before insert event. So here I'll be putting if the trigger dot is before followed by if trigger dot is insert, that the end user is performing the insert operation. Then what I have to do here is I need to go and perform the automation. Again, we discussed that my trigger should always go logicless and we should be defining more context specific methods. Again, to do that, I'll be creating the helper class here. So this will be my helper class. In that helper class, I am defining one method, public static void before insert. This will be my method. Now, in the case of before insert, what we discussed that we should always go and pass the new list of account, because that's what we discussed. We have to use the trigger dot new. So here I'll be using the list of case, that is the case list. Why case? Because I am creating the trigger on the case object. That's why here I am putting the list of case. Now the job of my trigger is to go and only invoke that method. So here I'll be putting the case trigger dot before insert, and what I'll be passing here is the trigger dot new. What I'll be passing here is the trigger dot new. Now coming to my logic now. This is where we have to go and build our actual logic. So what should be my logic now? Again, if you read the problem statement one more time, what you have to do? You have to get the web email. After getting that web email, you have to go to the contact. Once you got the contact, then you have to again come back to the case object and populate the contact field. Right? So basically there are three steps that we need to go and perform here. The step number one here is get all the web emails. Once you got the web email, then you have to get the contacts based on web email. That is the second step that you have to do. And the third one that you have to do here is once you got the contact, then you have to populate the contact ID of the case. Okay. Now we'll go and do this one after the other now. So first one, I am getting all the web email. To get all the web email, again, I have to go and iterate over my case list. So here I'll be putting for case, let's say case record from the case list. And here I am getting the web email. Again, if you don't know what is the field for the web email, go to the case object and look for that field, because sometimes we don't know the API names of the field, because every time we have to go and refer the API name, navigate to the case object, navigate to the fields and relationship, and look for the web email field. So what is the field name for the web email? That is the supplied email. So here I go and populate the supplied email. So what I am checking here is, again, I am only interested in those cases where they have maintained the web email. So the very first check that I am doing here is if the case rec dot is not blank, or you can say that string dot is not blank, that is the case rec dot supplied image. In case it is not blank, don't go and use the something like not equal to or blank. That is not the correct practice to do. Whenever you have to check for blank or not blank, always use the string class and their methods. So this is what we are checking. Now, in case it is not blank, I need to go and get all the web emails. So to do that, I am defining the set here. So let's say here I am putting the set of string. That is the web email set is equal to new set of string. Now, before I go further, I want to cover one more scenario here, because whenever the user might be entering the web email, for example, the user is entering the web email something like this, Ankit Jain @ training.com. That is the first. Second one, Ankit Jain @ training.com. Third one, Ankit Jain @ training.com. You guys can see that I do have the same web email, but I am entering in 3 different ways, right? If I go and add these 3 emails in the set, there will be 3 different entries. Again, I don't want to have the duplicate entries in my set with the different cases. The point that I want to make here is, for example, if I come to the developer console and show you, for example, I do have one set. In my set, I do have the 2 entries, one with the capital letter, one with the small letter. If I am adding that entries here, how many entries will be added in my set? Although both the values are same, we know that set automatically drop the duplicates. But in case the case is different, if I go and execute now, you guys will see that there are 2 entries in the case because the type is different. So what I need to make sure that whenever I am adding the entries inside my set, I am adding it into the one proper case form, either the uppercase or the lower case. It's completely up to you in whatever the case you want to go. So here I want to go with the lowercase. So what I'll be doing here is I'll be putting the web email set dot add case rec dot the field here is the supplied email. And what I am doing here is I am converting that supplied email into the lowercase form. To do that, I am using another method from the string class, that is the to lowercase. What this method will do? This method will convert my case into the lower cases. So now I do have my set ready with the lower cases entry. Now moving to the next part. What I need to do as a part of second step, I need to get the contacts based on my email. So to do that, what I will do, I will go and iterate over the case, iterate over the contacts. So again, I'll be using the for loop for contact. Just now we discussed that whenever possible, always go for the for SOQL loop. And here I'll be putting select ID, comma, email from contact where the email in my web email set. Again, SOQL is not case sensitive, so you can pass it in any case, does not matter. Okay, so this is what I'll be doing. And then whatever the results that I'll be getting against the web email, whatever the contacts that I will be getting, I have to store that contacts into the map collection. Again, to do that, here I go and define one map where I'll be putting the first thing as a string, and second thing that I will be putting here is the ID of the contact. It's completely up to you folks if you want to store the complete contact or if you want to only store the ID. It's completely up to you. Here I only want to store the ID of the contact. So what I will be putting up next here is, let's say I'm giving here the map name is email to contact map is equal to new map of string comma ID. And now into the map, whenever we have to add the new entry, we always use the put method. And here I am saying that the first thing that I'll be populating here is the email, and second thing that I will be populating here is the ID of the record. Right, so I have created the map and look for the contacts based on the web email. Now I do have the contact ID against every email. Now the next thing that I need to do, I need to go and populate the contact ID now. Again, to do that, I will be iterating over my new case list one more time. So here I will be putting for case rec of new case list. Again, the same check that I will be doing, like I have done here, I am checking for the not blank. So let me copy this from here and I am putting it here, because we are only interested in those records which do have the supplied email. Now, the next thing that I need to do here is I need to take this supplied email, go to the map, check if the email is found, check if the contact is found or not. If the contact is found, then and then only we have to go and populate the value. How we can do that? Pay attention for this. So whenever we have to check whether the entry is available in the map or not, we always use the method that is the contains key method. Again, for this example, definitely you should have the strong foundation of the collection. So here I will be putting the contains key method. What I am looking for, that is the case rec dot supplied email. Okay, and let me go and store this into the boolean variable is contact found, right? Is contact found. After that, what I am doing here is, here I am checking that is contact found is equal to true. Then and then only I have to go and perform my operation. What operation that I need to do here? I need to go and set my contact ID. But for that, from that map, I need to get the ID. So here I will be putting the ID is equal to contact ID of contact is equal to, from the map, whenever we have to get the value, we always use the get method. And by using the get method, what I am doing here is I am passing my key. So whenever you are using the get method and pass the key, you will always get the value. In my scenario, the value that we are storing here is the ID. So that's why here I go and put the ID. I hope you guys got the idea why I'm putting the ID, because the data type of my value here is ID. That's why here I put the value as ID. Now I got the ID here. The last thing that I need to do, I need to go and populate my contact ID. So here I go put case rec dot contact. Again, if you are not sure what is the API name of the field that you have to populate, again, go back to the object, look for the API name of the field. If I go here to the contact, that's what I need to go and populate. The API name of the field that I need to go and populate here is the contact ID is equal to, this is the contact ID that we have got. So 3 steps. First, I am getting all the web emails by iterating over my collection. Once I got my set ready, the next thing that I am doing here is I am getting the values from my map and putting it into the collection, that is the map collection. And the third thing, again, I am iterating over it. There is one small thing that I need to do, because here also there can be different cases of the email. So what I will do, whenever I am checking it into the map, let me always go and look for the lowercase. Okay, so here I'll be putting another same thing, that is the 2 lowercase, because that will be more logical, as we are only looking for the logic based on the lowercase. Okay, so now my selection looks correct to me. I am looking for the correct cases as well. Let me go and deploy this. And parallelly, I am also deploying my trigger as well. Okay, sorry, I have put the wrong name of the helper class. It should be class case trigger helper dot before insert. And here I go and deploy it one more time. Now, both of them are deployed. Let's go and do the end-to-end testing. So let's say I will be creating one case with this contact. Okay, I will be populating this as the web email, and the expectation here is Alice Michelle contact should be automatically populated. So let's navigate to the case. Where is the case? Okay, here it is. Creating the new case. I'm not populating the contact here. Let me go and set the origin as web. And here I will be putting the web email. And let's say here I'll be putting the subject as the test trigger, same as the description, and clicking on save. Now the expectation here is the contact should be automatically populated. You guys can see that we have only populated the web email, and based on that, my contact record is automatically populated here. I hope you folks got the clarity how we have implemented this, right? On the same line, I have put another assignment. If you folks do understand what I have done, please try this assignment as well. It will give you the confidence to build your own logic as well. So what you have to do here is this time also you have to go and create a Salesforce trigger. This time the trigger should automatically go and search for an account based on the phone field. So here what we do have the web phone as well. So whatever the phone number that user is entering, you have to search for the account based on the phone number and populate that account detail as well whenever the new case is created. Similar kind of an example previously we have taken with the base of email. This time you have to go and search for the account based on the phone number. So again, you will be answering this 4 question on what object the user will be performing the operation, what type of operation that user will be performing, what type of trigger is being used, and which context variable will be used. I do appreciate if you folks pause the video, answer these 4 questions in the comment section. I hope you folks have done that. So please validate your answers quickly. So we have to perform the operation again on the case object. Kind of an operation that user is performing is insert. We have to go and write down the before trigger because we have to update the field of the same record, and the context variable that we'll be using here is the trigger dot name. So the applicable event here will be the before insert event only. I hope you folks found this scenario helpful, got few learnings from this scenario as well. Do share your thoughts in the comment section if you are finding this particular series helpful or not. Thank you. Have a good time.